Yeah. And then bracing, are you using traditional?
Traditional bracing, yeah. There's nothing really unusual about my bracing pattern. It's a fairly typical scalloped, Martin type scallop X
Yeah.
bracing pattern. I am using a bolt-on neck. It's called double tenon neck, so the fretboard bolts down and the heel bolts on. And I pretty much use Dana Bourgeois' double tenon setup. It's very
Yeah.
similar.
Yeah.
Not quite as aggressive as a Taylor, but
Yeah.
it's more similar to a Bourgeois guitar.
Yeah. Why?
I like it. It's got pros and cons. I mean, they're tonal wise, I don't think there's much difference. I mean, I don't think, at least I can't really tell a difference, between I've done some, glued dovetails and bolt-ons, and to my ear, there isn't a big difference. But it offers, amazing accessibility. I mean, a lot of times you'll build a guitar and they all settle in, in the first year or so. I mean,
They do settle in, don't they?
Oh yeah, the action comes up, and you can be set with a situation where you can lower the saddle, to get the action back. But it may be just a little bit lower than optimal saddle height, you want for the break angle over the bridge.
Right.
But if you have to take the whole neck off and steam it off, with a dovetail or something, then you're more likely just to accept a slightly lower saddle,
Yeah.
rather than go through all that. But with this type of double tenon bolt-on, you can do a real minor tweak of the neck set, for optimal saddle height in a couple of hours. You can do it pretty quick.
Yeah.
So there's more flexibility as far as, setting the action. Downside is they do settle in a little more than a glued-on dovetail, because the fretboard extension is glued onto the top, and that serves as an extra brace. So I don't think they settle in quite as much.
Right.
As a double tenon. So
Right.
you have to kind of compensate for that, when you do your initial neck set.
Yeah. They really are loud here. I'm just going to strum a chord, and this is an OM, and this is rosewood.
Just Indian rosewood.
Indian
yeah,
rosewood. Where do you get your wood?
For many years, I got it from a guy named Walter Lipton in New Hampshire. He had the Euphonon Company.
Oh.
You ever heard of the Euphonon Company?
Oh yeah.
He sold a lot of strings and stuff.
Right,
But he
right.
had a great stash. He was one of the original American steel string builders, kind of in the Charlie Hoffman, Jim Olsen, Charles Fox
Yeah.
era. And
Well, Euphanon's an old name. You know that. I mean,
yes,
That's, yeah.
I do,
Right. Yeah. That's
And
Larson
Somehow
Brothers.
he took
yeah.
that name, and I don't know how he
Yeah.
did it, but
Yeah.
he had a great stash of really old wood. And
Uh-huh.
for most of my career, I got my wood from Walter.
Yeah.
And he's retired now, and he sold what he had left of his wood to Allied Lutherie.
Uh-huh.
And I think they've sold off almost all of the Euphonon wood now.
Yeah.
But,
Well, wood is becoming a bit more difficult. Wouldn't you agree to find?
oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, we're seeing increases in prices, and you guys have heard us say that wood prices are going up because of its scarcity. Old trees are being cut less and less, and it's just getting harder to
Right.
find good wood. And you mentioned you might have gotten this top from Jim Olsen.
This top I got just before the pandemic. I bought some Brazilian from Jim, and he said, by the way, I've got a couple cedar tops that I couldn't use on my guitars. They had tiny flaws in them.
Yeah.
And he said, you want them? And I said, sure.
Yeah, right.
So I had them sitting around the shop, and this is the first cedar top guitar I built.
Yeah,
But this is one of Jim's tops.
yeah, I see. And the volume on this. It's really got a fantastic presence. I notice you kind of scallop the braces on the back too. You're kind of
Well,
pyramiding them?
Oh yeah, yeah. I
Here.
try to take off as much mass as I can,
Yeah.
and still have some. That strength comes a lot from the height of the brace, rather than the
Width.
The width. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, and so yeah. So and same with my top bracing too.
Yeah.
They're all scalloped. They're all pyramided, so they come to a kind of a point.
Yeah,
As
yes,
well as the
yes.
traditional scallop on the ends.
Yeah, so you can thin out the bridge and give it a little more height and make it strong still,
Right.
which is
Right.
what Gibson was famous for doing too. And then this is a new Kennedy OM, Rosewood, and cedar top, rosewood maple liner, carbon fiber reinforced neck, Brazilian rosewood bridge and heel cap, headstock veneer, and end graft. But the carbon fiber reinforced neck.
That's something I learned from Charles Fox, and and a lot of people do this. I think
Yeah, they do.
Collins they use metal. They use steel bars on either side.
Yeah, I
of the
think they
truss
wure
rod.
using carbon earlier, but have changed.
Changed
But
to metal, yeah.
Yeah.
It's just basically a 1/8 inch carbon bar on either side of the truss rod slot. And then at first I stopped them, at the nut, but that was a long time ago. And, I extend them into the headstock.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, so they go all the way into the headstock, and on my arch tops, they go all the way out to the end of the extension, the
Right.
floating extension.
Yeah.
So they give it some strength. I think it'd be pretty hard to break a headstock off, one of these.
See?
I haven't tried, but
And does it have a tonal benefit?
I don't know.
Okay.
I'm not totally, I think people use it as a
Strength.
sales technique, it definitely makes the neck a little stiffer.
Yeah.
And that may have, people say, well, not as much vibration is taken up by the neck. And
Right.
I don't know if that's true or not. I just started doing it, and I like it. One of the reasons I really like it is running it across the headstock.
Yeah. Yeah.
They definitely are stiffer with that. I noticed, when I would string them up, if they stopped here, you get a little more relief than if it went across the headstock. I don't know why that is, but
Interesting.
they just seem stiffer.
Yeah.
So you have to be careful when you level the fretboard, because you have to tighten the truss rod a little, or else you might not get enough relief, when you string it up.
Right. Right.
So you have to make sure you got maybe just a real mild hump in the center of the fretboard when you level the fretboard.
I see.
So you'll get a little relief at least.
Yeah. 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 Huh. Very interesting. And you have some more guitars coming. You're working on. How many guitars do you think you do a year?
I
Roughly.
think my maximum output was 6, but
6?
and I'm getting older now, and probably 4 or 5 will be
Yeah.
what my output will be.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I've got a couple. One is a commission, and I have a kind of my workhorse. It's kind of a double side mahogany Lutz top OM.
Yeah.
And the double side mahogany on both sides has been a well received guitar. So one of them is that.
Yeah. And Lutz is.
Lutz is supposed to be a hybrid between white spruce and Sitka. It
Yeah.
grows up in British Columbia, and I'm kind of using up my stash of Lutz. It's an interesting wood. It's definitely softer. It's not as soft as Engelmann, but it's softer than Sitka, and way softer than Adirondack.
Yeah.
And to my ear, I think it's maybe a little lusher tone.
Mhm.
Not quite as edgy.
Mm-hmm.
But it's very close to Sitka,
Yes.
It's a very similar wood.
Huh. Yeah.
It's not a night and day difference to my
Right.
ear anyway.
Right. Yeah. Anything else you can think of about making guitars or your own?
Well, I'd say the probably the biggest benefit I had from building is the people I've met.
Yeah.
I've met so many great people through the podium, and now through Willie's here.
Yeah.
And that's been one of the really most attractive spin-offs of building is.
It's an interesting community.
It's
isn't
really
it?
an interesting community.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
fascinating people.
Lots of fascinating
You
people.
meet some of
both-
your heroes, get to know them.
Yeah. You meet heroes, and,
Yeah.
and everybody's kind of in the same boat, So yeah, that's it is fun to see inspirational people meet inspirational people.
It is,
and
yeah,
meet
it keeps
people
you
from all
going. Yeah,
backgrounds.
it really
Yes,
does.
Yeah,
Keeps you going.
I agree.
And the other thing I've learned is that it takes a long time. You get kind of cocky if you build 10 guitars, and,
Yeah.
and people tell you how great they are and stuff, and you kind of think, well, I got this nailed, but you don't.
Yeah,
And there's so many million little things that go into making a guitar sound good. It's not just a neck or a top, and you have to see them back. You have to build a guitar, have it sold, have it out there for a while, and then see it back a couple of years later to find out where you might have made a mistake. Maybe it settled in too much, or maybe there's something cracked, and
right.
so you know, I'm getting close to 100 guitars, and the more you build, the less you feel like you know. You know,
Yeah.
the stupider you feel.
Right, right.
But I think, you know, once you get past 50, then you start to kind of, you've seen some of your guitars back, and you start to
Yeah.
get into a rhythm that you know is probably going to produce a durable, you know, instrument that sounds good.
Yeah.
But yeah, you never, it's a bottomless pit. You know, you never even come close to mastering it. It's
Yeah.
just an ongoing.
I've heard that again and again. It is just
Yeah.
an ongoing
Yeah, the
lesson.
more you build, the more you realize you don't know.
Yeah. So there we have it. And this is a conversation with Terry Kennedy, Kennedy Guitars. We don't see a lot of these. They have great resale, by the way. That's unusual because guys will bring them in and it's like, wow, yeah, we're always eager to take in a Kennedy, and you're making great stuff. I mean, everybody that comes in will play a Kennedy and go, wow, what is this?
Thank you.
And so here we are introducing you to what is this, and this is Terry, and we hope you guys got something out of this.